The air in King's Landing always smelled of smoke, blood, and secrets. But on this night, the air was still, like it was holding its breath. Jaime Lannister stood at the corner of a shadowed hallway inside the Red Keep, his golden hand twitching slightly as he waited. Brienne of Tarth was beside him, her eyes scanning every corridor, her massive frame almost blending into the dark. Behind them, hooded and quiet, stood Sansa Stark. Her hands were cold, but her mind was clear. She knew this was her only chance. Earlier that day, word had come from Tyrion. "Cersei is preparing something. You need to get out," he had whispered quickly during a stolen moment in the court gardens. Jaime had nodded, a silent agreement passing between the brothers. Tyrion didn't ask where Jaime would go or who he'd take. He just hoped his brother still had some honor left. Jaime had found Brienne in the training yard. He didn't need to explain much. Her loyalty was to the living, to honor, and strangely, to him. When he asked her to help him protect Sansa, she had simply nodded once, and that was that. Now, under the cover of darkness, the three moved silently through the hidden passages Tyrion had told Jaime about long ago. Passages built by Maegor the Cruel secret ways that even Cersei didn't know. Brienne led the way with her sword drawn, the Valyrian steel of Oathkeeper glowing faintly in the dark. Sansa moved with surprising strength. Gone was the girl who once dreamt of fairy tales. She walked now like a Stark, her chin up and eyes sharp. Jaime glanced at her once, and for the first time he saw more of Catelyn in her than Ned. That made his stomach twist. They reached a small iron gate at the base of the castle, behind the dragon skull chamber. Jaime bent and pulled a rusted lever hidden behind a loose stone, and the gate groaned open. Cold wind rushed in, a reminder that the world outside was vast and cruel, but also free. Outside, 2 horses waited, prepared by Podrick, Brienne's faithful squire. He had risked much to help them, and now he rode slightly ahead, watching the path. As the 4 of them escaped into the woods, the first bells of morning started to ring far behind them. The Red Keep was waking, and soon someone would discover that Sansa was missing. But by then, they'd be gone. They didn't speak much during the ride. Every sound in the forest made them flinch. Every rustle could be a Lannister scout or a Bolton rider. Jaime, once a proud knight of the Kingsguard, now wore a plain cloak and looked more like a tired sellsword than the famous Kingslayer. Brienne, though still in armor, kept her face hidden beneath a thick hood. After 2 days of hard riding, they reached a small inn near the Trident River. It was quiet, the kind of place where no one asked questions if you paid well and kept to yourself. Sansa sat by the fire that night, staring into the flames. Brienne watched her, worry creasing her brow. "She's stronger than I thought," Jaime said quietly. Brienne nodded. "She's seen too much not to be." Jaime didn't answer. His mind was already racing. Cersei would burn the world to find Sansa, not because she cared for her, but because she hated the idea of losing. And once she found out Jaime helped her escape, "She'd come for me," Jaime muttered. "She'll come for all of us," Brienne said. "But let her come. We'll be ready." Sansa looked over at them, her eyes calm but unreadable. "We're not going back," she said softly. "Not ever." And in that moment, all 3 of them knew they weren't just running anymore. They were about to become something dangerous, something new. 3 days later, the rain came hard, like the sky itself was angry. Their cloaks soaked through, their boots heavy with mud. The group trudged through the thick woods near Maiden Pool. Podrick, usually cheerful, said little. He had spotted a group of gold cloaks on the road the day before, riders bearing the Lannister lion on their cloaks. Cersei's hounds were close. "We can't stay in one place too long," Brienne said, her voice firm as she pulled her hood tighter. Jaime nodded. "She's hunting us." Sansa didn't flinch at the thought. Her eyes had changed, colder, sharper. She wasn't the girl from Winterfell anymore. Not the lady who once bowed before queens and begged for kindness. She had been forged in fire. Joffrey's cruelty, Littlefinger's manipulation, and Ramsay's torture. Now she was steel, and steel did not break. That night, they took shelter in an abandoned farmhouse. The roof leaked, and mice scattered across the floor, but it was shelter. Jaime sat by the window, sword at his side, eyes watching the tree line. Brienne checked the perimeter twice before removing her armor piece by piece. Sansa sat near the fire, staring into the flames again. Always the flames. "They'll expect us to run north," she said suddenly. "They know I'd want to go home." Jaime turned. "So we don't go north?" Sansa looked up at him. "Not yet. We need allies first. People who hate Cersei more than they fear her." Jaime chuckled bitterly. "That's a long list. But they're all either dead or hiding." "Then we find them," Sansa said, her voice steady. Brienne looked at her with quiet respect. "Where would we even start?" "There's a lord in River Run," Sansa said. "A Tully, my uncle, Edmure. He was a prisoner at the Twins, but the Freys are gone now. If he's alive, he might help us." Jaime stiffened. The last time he saw River Run, he had threatened Edmure's child to end a siege. "That won't be a warm reunion." "Then stay out of sight," Sansa said coldly. Brienne shot her a sharp look, but Jaime just nodded. He deserved that. By morning, they were back on the road, avoiding main paths, sticking to woods and streams. The landscape was rough, the people rougher. At one village, they stopped to trade for food. The villagers were poor and mean-faced. One old woman spat when she saw Brienne, calling her a freak in armor. Jaime stepped forward, gold hand gleaming, but Sansa put a hand on his chest. "Let them talk. We're ghosts now." But that was the problem. They weren't invisible anymore. 2 nights later, as they camped in a hollow by the river, Jaime heard the snap of a branch. Not animal, not wind. "Up!" He barked. Brienne grabbed her sword, just as men burst through the trees, 5 of them, rough-looking sellswords with wicked blades and cruel smiles. "Well, well," said the leader, grinning at Sansa. "What's a little bird like you doing out in the wild?" Jaime didn't wait. He rushed the man with his sword, clumsy with his left hand, but brutal with his speed. Brienne took 2 men down before they could blink. Pod fought hard, blocking a blow meant for Sansa. One of the bandits grabbed her, knife to her throat, but she didn't scream. Instead, she shoved her thumb into his eye, making him shriek. Brienne finished him with 1 clean strike. When the fight was over, 4 men lay dead. The 5th ran, bleeding into the trees. Jaime leaned against a tree, breathing hard. That was not subtle. "We need to move," Brienne said, wiping blood from her blade. "Word will spread." Sansa stood over one of the bodies, staring down. Her face was pale, but calm. "I'm not scared anymore," she said softly. Jaime looked at her. For the first time, he didn't see a Stark girl or a pawn in a political game. He saw a queen. They rode hard for River Run, the wind sharp and biting against their faces. Behind them, the forest felt like it was watching. Ahead, the unknown waited, but it was a better companion than the eyes of Queen Cersei's spies. The Tully lands were quiet but tense. Smoke rose in the distance, not from battle, but from fear. War had scarred these lands too many times. When the group passed through a small hamlet, villagers turned away, mothers pulled children inside, and men gripped pitchforks. No one offered them shelter. No one trusted strangers anymore. River Run itself stood tall again, no longer under siege, though its walls bore the damage of past wars. Banners of the silver trout flapped in the wind. Brienne stayed close to Sansa, while Jaime pulled his hood low. The last time he came here, he wore the Lannister lion and spoke like a conqueror. Now He rode in like a ghost, carrying shame. At the gates, 2 guards raised their spears. No entry without the Lord's say-so. Sansa stepped forward, calm as winter. Tell Lord Edmure Tully that his niece Sansa Stark stands at his gates. The guards looked at her. One squinted, doubtful. Then the younger one whispered something. After a moment, they vanished behind the gates. It took 2 hours before the portcullis finally groaned open. Edmure Tully looked older than Sansa remembered. His beard was streaked with gray, his eyes hollow. Years in a Frey dungeon had drained the life from him, but when he saw her, his face cracked with disbelief. "Sansa?" he whispered. She walked up to him and hugged him. Just once, quietly. "I've come home, uncle." Or as close as I can get. Edmure's eyes went to Brienne and Podrick, then landed on Jaime. His face hardened. "Why is he here?" Sansa didn't look away. "Because he saved my life." Edmure didn't look convinced. "He threatened my child, Sansa. He wore the lion's skin while my house burned." Jaime met his eyes, guilt naked on his face. "I know what I did, and I know what I owe." "You owe more than words," Edmure growled. "He does," Sansa said. "But he's not here as a Lannister. He's here because we're trying to stop something worse than any house feud." They were given rooms, but not trust. Edmure kept Jaime under watch, wouldn't let him near the war room, and refused to dine in the same hall. Jaime didn't complain. He stayed quiet, distant. He knew every room in River Run whispered about him. The Kingslayer, the Golden Traitor. Sansa, meanwhile, walked the halls with quiet power. She spoke with Edmure, won the respect of the Bannermen, and slowly built a plan. Cersei was burning the capital from the inside. Spies said she had executed 2 nobles for questioning her rule. The small folk whispered that she had opened the sept again, not for prayer, but for propaganda. Her madness was growing teeth. "She'll not stop until she's Queen of Ashes," Sansa told Edmure one evening. "She thinks the Iron Throne belongs to her alone." "And what do you want, Sansa?" he asked. She looked him in the eye. "I want to make sure there's a realm left to save." That night, she met Jaime in the quiet of the courtyard. He was staring up at the stars, a rare stillness on his face. "You still dream about her?" she asked. He didn't have to ask who she meant. "Every night," he said. "And every night I wake up hoping the dream ends." Sansa stepped closer. "She'll kill you, Jaime. When she finds out you helped me escape, she'll put your head on a spike." He didn't look scared. "She already killed the part of me that loved her. This, whatever I'm doing now, maybe it's all that's left." Sansa studied him for a long time. Then stop hiding. Stop apologizing. Be the man you claim you want to be. In the distance, a raven landed on the battlements. Its scroll was sealed with red wax, shaped like a lion. Brienne climbed the steps quickly and took it from the guard. Her eyes scanned the message, her jaw tightening. "It's from King's Landing," she said. "The Queen has put a bounty on Sansa. 10,000 gold dragons. Dead or alive." Sansa took the scroll, her hands steady. Jaime looked at Brienne. "It started," Brienne nodded. "She's declared open war on her own brother. On all of us." Sansa crumpled the message and let it fall. "Good," she said. "Let her come." By the time word of the bounty spread through the Riverlands, there was no more hiding. Every man with a rusted sword, every broken knight and desperate Sellsword now saw Sansa Stark as a moving chest of gold. They weren't chasing a girl, they were hunting a reward. Edmure doubled the guards around River Run, but the fortress was not built for siege anymore. The food stores were thin, the men tired. River Run had survived too many wars. It was holding on by its bones. "Staying here is a death sentence," Brienne warned. "We can't fight off every fool who wants a pouch of gold." Sansa sat in the war room, her eyes sharp. "Then we don't stay. We draw them away. Edmure slammed his hand on the table. You want to leave? And do what? Exactly ride into the open while every bounty hunter from here to Dorne chases your shadow? Yes, Sansa said without hesitation. But not alone? She turned to Jaime. We need a distraction. Someone the hunters will chase instead of me. Jaime raised an eyebrow. You want me to be the bait? You're worth something too now, Brienne said. The Queen didn't just put a price on Sansa. She wants your head just as badly. Jaime smiled grimly. So I'm finally worth something again. Shame it took treason. The plan was madness, but madness was their only option. At dawn, they split. Sansa rode south in a covered wagon with Brienne and Podrick, dressed as a merchant's daughter. Jaime rode east, wrapped in a crimson cloak, letting himself be seen and recognized. By nightfall, there were already 3 groups trailing Jaime. He let them. Riding hard through the forest trails, he kept his blade close and his eyes open. Every shadow could be a trap. Every whisper could be a last breath. Yet strangely, he felt alive. Not as a knight, not as a Lannister, just as a man finally doing one thing right. 2 days later, in a clearing surrounded by dense pines, the first group attacked, 6 of them, armed, hungry, and eager. You're Jaime Lannister, the leader grinned, his teeth brown. Cersei wants your head. You want it? Jaime said, drawing his sword. Come take it. The fight was brutal. Jaime was older now, slower, and still learning to fight with his left. But he had something they didn't, nothing left to lose. When it was done, 3 lay dead, 2 fled bleeding, and 1 begged for mercy. Jaime left him alive, on purpose. Tell her I'm coming, he said. Tell her I remember everything. Meanwhile, Sansa's group passed through Harrenhal, the burnt ruins still haunted by old ghosts. No one dared stay there long. But within those walls, Sansa met someone unexpected, a hooded woman with piercing eyes and a scar across her cheek. Lady Stoneheart, Brienne whispered. The undead Catelyn Stark stared at Sansa, something like sorrow flickering in her dead eyes. She didn't speak, but she watched. Sansa stood still, letting the silence stretch between them. I'm not the girl you lost, Sansa finally said, but I'm not afraid anymore. I will finish what you started. Stoneheart said nothing. But when they left, a hidden passage was revealed to them, one known only to the Brotherhood without banners. A quiet blessing from the dead. 2 days later, they reached a crossroads inn and changed clothes again. Sansa now looked like a farmer's wife. Podrick shaved his beard. Brienne kept her hand on her sword. But even with all the caution, danger followed. In the dead of night, 3 men broke into their room. One grabbed Sansa by the hair, dragging her from bed. Brienne's blade was a flash of steel in the dark, but one man got away, screaming, I saw her. It's the Stark girl. They couldn't stay another hour. By morning, they were on the road again, this time heading for White Harbor. Sansa's hope lay in the north. Lord Wyman Manderley had once sworn to House Stark. If she could reach him, she could rally banners, maybe even retake Winterfell. But every step forward was paid with blood and risk. Brienne rode beside her, eyes scanning the horizon. You're doing something dangerous, she said. Becoming something dangerous. Sansa didn't answer at first. Then she said softly, That's what surviving makes of you. Behind them, somewhere far on the road, Jaime left another group of bounty hunters dead in a ditch. His sword dripped with blood, but his eyes stared north, toward the place where this would all end. Cersei would never stop hunting them. But now, for the first time, someone was hunting her back. Snow began to fall by the time they reached the edge of White Harbor's outer lands, soft at first, then heavier, as if winter had finally woken from its slumber. The road was quiet, but the silence wasn't peace. It was fear. Cersei's bounty had poisoned the entire realm. Now even northern lands were cautious, unsure who was friend and who was spy. White Harbor's gates loomed large, guarded by men in thick fur cloaks. The sigil of House Manderley, a white merman with a trident, flew high above the towers. Brienne rode ahead with a white banner of peace, while Sansa kept her face hidden beneath layers of wool and shadow. The guards approached, spears raised. Names, Brienne didn't flinch. Sir Brienne of Tarth. With me is Lady Sansa Stark of Winterfell. The guards hesitated, exchanging doubtful glances. Then one of them turned and ran toward the city. Minutes dragged like hours until a voice called from the walls. Let them through. Inside, Lord Wyman Manderley stood waiting in the snow-covered courtyard. He had grown thinner since the war, but his eyes still carried weight, sharp and calculating beneath his heavy hood. He dropped to one knee before Sansa. My lady, you have come home. Sansa bowed her head. Thank you for your loyalty, my lord. I come seeking your help. Manderley stood, his voice low. Say the word, and I will raise every man I have. The North remembers. Sansa felt a sharp pang in her chest at those words. I don't just need men, she said. I need justice. While Manderley's bannermen prepared in secret, sending quiet ravens north and west, Jaime rode toward the Dreadfort, or what was left of it. The Boltons had been slaughtered, but rumors whispered of surviving loyalists. Men who would sell their souls for a coin, and who might sell Sansa's name to the wrong ears. Jaime didn't ride with caution anymore. He rode with purpose. At a burned-out village on the edge of the Bolton lands, he found what he was looking for. 5 former soldiers, branded with the flayed man, drinking around a campfire. One recognized him instantly. You're the Queen's brother, he sneered. The one she wants dead. Jaime dismounted calmly. That's right. Come to surrender? No. He drew his sword, and the fight was fast, vicious, and loud. When it was over, the last man tried to crawl away through the snow, blood trailing behind him. Jaime knelt beside him. Tell your queen, he whispered. Her brother is coming. He drove his sword into the man's heart, then walked away without looking back. Meanwhile, in White Harbor, Sansa stood before a small council of northern lords, their faces worn and weary from years of betrayal and war. She spoke not like a girl seeking protection, but like a ruler reclaiming her land. My brother John died fighting for the living. My sister Arya vanished chasing ghosts. My home was stolen, my name hunted. All I have left is this moment and this choice, to keep running or to rise. The lords exchanged murmurs. Manderley stood. The North has bled too long. If the last Stark calls us to arms, we will answer. That night, Sansa looked out over the harbor, the sea wind whipping her cloak. Brienne stood beside her, silent. You believe I can do this? Sansa asked softly. I do, Brienne said. But what you become, you'll never be able to undo. Sansa nodded slowly. I don't want to undo it. Far to the south, Cersei Lannister stood in her chamber in the Red Keep, staring at the fire, wine in hand. A raven lay unopened beside her. Qyburn approached, his voice like a whisper through rot. More bounty hunters have failed, your grace. Jaime's trail has gone cold. And Sansa Stark is rallying the North. Cersei didn't blink. Then let it be war. She walked to the window. The city sprawled out before her like a beast in chains. If my enemies want to rise, she said coldly, I'll burn the sky to stop them. Her fingers closed around the raven, and she crushed it before it could be read. Back in White Harbor, as snowstorm winds howled through the night, Sansa met Jaime once more, wounded, tired, but still standing. You brought the storm with you, she said. He smiled faintly, a cut above his brow bleeding slow. No, the storm's been here all along. I just stopped running from it, and in the snow-covered North, war began to stir again. But this time, it wasn't the lions who roared. It was the wolves. Winterfell stood silent under heavy snow. Its gray towers rose like old bones from the light ground, proud but battered. Smoke curled from chimneys, and the banners of House Stark, once torn down, burned, trampled, flew high again. The wolf had returned, but not without cost. Sansa stood in the great hall, her furs trimmed in white, her hair braided in the old northern style. She was no longer hiding. She was no longer anyone's pawn. This was her home, and she had taken it back, not with dragons or fire, but with blood, patience, and grit. The northern lords had gathered. Some cheered her. Some whispered. Some still doubted. But none could deny the truth. Sansa Stark had outlived kings, queens, and monsters. She had escaped the Red Keep, walked through hell, and brought the North to its feet. But even as the castle filled with life again, the winds carried whispers. Cersei was on the move. Through spies, through bribes, through men willing to die just to curry favor with the Mad Queen of Ashes, she had found a way to strike back. And she had sent her answer not through armies, but through shadows. On a frozen morning, a riderless horse arrived at the gates of Winterfell. On its saddle was a sack. Inside the sack was a head. Podrick turned pale. Brienne cursed under her breath. Sansa stared long and hard at the lifeless eyes of the northern messenger who had carried word of her return to Old Town. A simple man, loyal and nameless. Now a warning. Tied around his severed neck was a note. "Come back to me, brother, or I'll burn them all." See, Jaime read it twice, then handed it back. His face was unreadable. Brienne spoke first. "She knows where we are. She won't stop now." "No," Jaime said, voice low. "She won't." That night, Sansa found him sharpening his sword alone in the crypts, beside the tomb of Ned Stark. Snow drifted in from a broken window. Jaime didn't look up. "She wants me," he said. "Not you. I left her. I humiliated her. She'll burn the world just to make me watch." Sansa stepped closer. "If you go back, she'll kill you. I know. And if you stay here, she'll come for us all. I know that too." He looked up finally, eyes tired but clear. "Then it's time I end it." Sansa shook her head. "Not alone." Brienne, Podrick, and even Edmure argued against it. But Sansa's mind was made. She would not sit in Winterfell, waiting for another red raven or another sack full of death. The Queen wanted a war? Then she'd get one, but not from the shadows. They would strike first. In the old war room, Sansa spread out a map of Westeros. "She expects us to come through the gates," she said, "to march like fools into her traps." "So we don't," Manderley nodded. "You want to use the narrow sea?" "No," Sansa said. "I want to use the old ways. The smugglers' routes, the tunnels below the city, the ones even the Lannisters pretend don't exist." Jaime leaned in. "I know where they are." It was decided. A small force, no banners, no horns. Just the few who had everything to lose and nothing to prove. Jean, Brienne, Podrick, two of Manderley's finest. And Sansa herself. Edmure called it suicide. Sansa called it justice. Before they left, she visited the Godswood. Snow clung to the weirwood's red leaves, and the face carved into its bark wept frozen tears. She knelt. "I'm not a girl anymore," she whispered, "and I'm not asking for mercy. Just a little time." She left a black feather at the base of the tree, the same kind her father once placed on Lyanna's tomb. The journey south was brutal. Storms on the road. A shipwreck off the Fingers. One of Manderley's men died in the freezing waves. The rest pressed on. Jaime grew weaker. Brienne carried him once through a mountain pass, teeth clenched against the cold. But on the 12th night, they stood on the cliffs above King's Landing. The city sprawled like a beast below, golden and bloated with secrets. The Red Keep shimmered in the moonlight, its towers sharp against the sky. And there, A faint glow from within. Wildfire. She's stockpiling it again, Jaime muttered. Sansa stared hard at the castle that had once held her prisoner. She'll burn us all if we let her. Brienne looked to Jaime. Then we don't let her. They climb down the cliffs, through cracks in stone, known only to smugglers and ghosts. The sea crashed below. The wind howled like a beast. And by sunrise, they were inside the walls. Cersei didn't know it yet, but the wolves had returned to King's Landing. The tunnels beneath King's Landing were cold, wet, and forgotten by time. Rats skittered past Jaime's boots as he led them forward through the blackness. He remembered these passages from years ago, when he was still the golden lion of the capital, when he wore armor that gleamed and lived by lies wrapped in gold. Now he walked as a ghost. And behind him came the storm. Sansa followed close, silent as snow. Her eyes never blinked, her steps never faltered. This was the castle that had once held her in chains, forced her to kneel, to smile through pain, to survive monsters behind every mask. But not anymore. This time she had come to finish it. Brienne moved beside her like a living shield, sword always ready. Podrick scouted ahead, torch in hand. Every flicker of light revealed more of the city's rotten underbelly. Roots twisted through stone, the smell of old blood, tunnels long collapsed. Death had passed through here many times before. "Keep left at the split," Jaime said, voice hoarse. "It leads straight to the Red Keep cellars." "Where the wildfire is," Brienne muttered. Sansa narrowed her eyes. And where she be hiding when she lights the match? Atop the Red Keep, Queen Stark-Lannister stood in her throne room, wearing black from throat to toe. Her hair was short, her crown cruel, her smile absent. Her court was smaller now. Fewer allies, fewer friends. Even Qyburn was gone, dead in some alley, his secrets spilled in blood. But Cersei remained. She drank her wine and stared at the Iron Throne like it was a lover. She had won so much, buried so many, burned cities, betrayed blood, survived dragons and dead men. And still they came for her. The North, the traitor brother, the girl with wolf eyes. A knock on the throne room doors, loud, demanding. The guards moved to open them and were dead before they could even shout. Brienne stepped through the doors first, blood on her blade. Podrick followed. Then Sansa. And finally, Jaime. Cersei didn't move from the throne. "Well," she said coolly, "it's a family reunion." Sansa didn't blink. "Step down." Cersei laughed. "From this? You must be mad. You lost the realm," Brienne said. "There is no crown anymore, just fire and ash. And whose fault is that?" Cersei snapped, standing. "I built this kingdom with fear, held it together with blood. You think the people want your northern fairy tale? They want to live, and I made sure they did." Jaime stepped forward. "They're dying in your streets. They're alive because I said so." Cersei screamed, her voice sharp, broken, unhinged. "Because I didn't burn them. Yet." Behind the throne, a soft green glow leaked from the walls. The wildfire caches had been refilled, more than before. Enough to turn the Red Keep into a volcano. Sansa stepped closer. "This city has seen enough queens who burn things." Cersei tilted her head, mocking. "You came all this way to give me a speech?" Touching, she reached behind the Iron Throne. Jaime was faster. In one blur of motion, he grabbed her wrist, the one holding the small trigger, the hidden lever that would ignite it all. Cersei froze, their eyes locked. "I loved you," Jaime said, voice shaking. Cersei smiled bitterly. "I loved you too." Then she tried to pull the trigger. Jaime drove his sword through her stomach. Silence fell over the throne room. Cersei gasped once, blood on her lips, eyes wide with disbelief. She looked at the man she had shared a womb with, a bed, a lifetime. And then she fell to the cold stone floor. Jaime stood over her, breathing heavy, hands shaking. You always wanted to die queen of everything, but you left nothing behind. Sansa watched, her face unreadable. Part of her expected to feel triumph, but all she felt was the cold. Outside, word spread like wildfire, but for once there were no flames. The queen was dead. In the streets, people came out of hiding. Doors opened, eyes lifted. No banners were raised, no cheers were heard. Just a long exhaled breath, the sound of a kingdom waking from a nightmare. Later that day, Sansa stood at the steps of the great sept, now a hollow ruin, and spoke to the people. There will be no queen, no king, no iron throne. Murmurs ran through the crowd. There will be voices, there will be choices, and there will be peace. She left that night, back to the north, to Winterfell, not as a queen, not as a symbol, but as herself. Jaime stayed behind, burying Cersei where she once buried all her enemies, alone, beneath the Red Keep. Brienne took the white cloak once, worn by knights of the Kingsguard, and placed it on Podrick's shoulders. You've earned it. And far away, ravens flew, not to call men to war, but to tell them it was over. The war was done. The wolves had won.